What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Four Player Network's Audible Impressions. With me this week is Nolan Hedstrom of Four Player Podcast fame and also a occasional writer on fourplayernetwork.com, and sitting alongside with me, Jeff DeMello, writer and Audible Impression podcast guy, musician, blah, blah, blah. Ni No Kuni is this Audible Impressions game, and it's one hell of a game to discuss.
Oh yeah, it's right up my alley, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I've played, a traditional JRPG. So I mean, that's one of the things that excited me the most about this game. Right. And not to mention, Studio Ghibli, which I don't know anybody who doesn't like Studio Ghibli.
Right. That is in the first 5-6 hours that I've played this game. That was my biggest selling point, right? Like that was the thing that is keeping me in.
Oh, definitely. And if for those who haven't played the game yet, like when I first got it, I was like, oh, it's gonna kind of be, Studio Ghibli art style. No, it really feels like I'm playing a Studio Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
Like it feels like some of the cutscenes are beautiful. There's also one of the things I like is they have their like straight up animated cutscenes, animated completely in the Studio Ghibli style, and then they have the graphics of the video game itself.
Yeah.
Which it'll cut to every once in a while, but there's pretty seamless transitions in between the in-game graphic cutscenes and going into gameplay, which is what I like. Two people will be having a conversation, and all of a sudden, you start running through the world.
Yeah. So this game is, first of all, it's super charming, and everything Studio Ghibli does is like super charming. It's Japan's Disney, right? Like that's what they do.
Definitely, yeah.
And so this game is about a little boy called Oliver, who something happens to his mom in the beginning of the game that kind of pulls at your heartstrings, and then he cries onto a doll who magically comes to life.
The doll, and it turns out that the doll was originally, it wasn't a doll, it was like a fairy, right. I guess, and a curse had been put on him, and it turns out you're a wizard. And so, your tears have the ability to break that spell. Right, and so without spoiling too much, because this is the thing about the game that I'd rather leave out, because it kind of takes off in the beginning, and a lot of stuff happens in the first 2 hours, and then it starts unpeeling itself. You know what I mean? And you start to understand some more stuff that was kind of cloudy in the beginning of the game. The story so far is good. I like it. I'm liking it more than I expected to be honest. And even though it starts a little slow, all JRPGs do. Let's be honest. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it had a lot of good story beats within the first 5 hours that I've played so far.
I definitely like where the narrative's going. I'm at about I think where you're at about 5 hours, is what you said, 6 hours, something like that.
Yeah. I'm just passing. I just wrapped up Ding Dong Dell, which is the first village that you're
the first main area you go to in this new world of this magic world.
Yep.
And and so you're about to go into a new village area, and that's where you're going to meet your first person that goes along with you, and that actually has some really compelling stuff. And the narrative it's really well done going between worlds, because you actually go back and forth between the worlds.
Right.
I don't think you've done a whole lot of that.
No, you did with the cat.
Yeah, with the cat. Yeah. So and so my problem with that, where the narrative is done really well, but one of the problems with the game mechanics kind of messes it up a little bit, and that's you have a little star on your map that tells you where your main quest objective is.
Yep.
So unlike most RPGs I've played before, anytime you have any objective, you can throw it up on the map. This one, the only thing that will be on your map is the main objective, and then sometimes people who are relevant their little circle that represents the person on the map will be a different color, but only one objective. And so the problem is sometimes it'll be it'll make nods to, oh, do you remember when this happened, an hour ago? And you're like, oh yeah, I do remember that. That's this. But then it just tells you exactly where to go. And I almost wish that was the case. And so what I actually ended up doing was I turned off that little star on my mini map. And so I think it's much more engaging when like, oh yeah, I know now that I have to go to, the workshop or the sewer drain or whatever. I remember seeing that, and I personally prefer that much more than the game. It's pretty handholdy. Like even where I'm at a little over 7 hours. I mean, it's like a 50-60 hour game, so I'm sure that'll stop eventually. But as of right now, it's still a little too handholdy in my opinion. I would rather the game let me go on my own.
Yeah, I feel like level 5 is definitely trying to like appeal, or at least hold the hands of those who have yet to really dive into a JRPG. Yeah.
They don't want to scare anybody off.
No, especially with like Studio Ghibli being, a big draw for this game. What about those who really don't play video games but really love what Studio Ghibli does?
Yeah. No, so that's a good point. And one of the other things in this game is, I mean, I guess we can talk about the familiar system. It's one of the other big aspects of the game.
Yeah, the Pokemon.
Yeah, so if you don't know, it's essentially like Pokemon in the sense that you fight creatures just like any JRPG. I guess you can liken it to like Dragon Quest or like Final Fantasy 12, where you physically see them running around the world. And you can get into encounters with them, and eventually in the game, about where I'm at, you then have the ability to like capture them, and you can train them and whatnot, and each one has their own different abilities. There's a lot to the system, but I think it's done really well to an extent.
Yeah, from what I've heard, this game is going to keep feeding us new, gears into the systems, like even 20-30 hours in.
Yeah,
like it's not going to stop.
It still keeps building itself.
They're really taking their time, with everything.
Mm-hmm.
I love the familiar system. I've dabbled in Pokemon before, mainly like way back in the day when I was younger, and then I jumped in on Black and White, but I didn't dive in deeper than like 8-10 hours, and then it lost its appeal to me. But for whatever reason right now, I'm really, really enjoying it. The familiar system and that whole thing, having that kind of Pokemon-esque gameplay mechanic to run with. I also like that the game has its own language, and that there's a codex or a decoder in the back of the game manual that teaches you the decryption, and you have to decrypt stuff. You could decrypt stuff throughout the world, and in the magic book that they get, which is like your magician's handbook, which again is an awesome thing. Like I read through that thing, and like I spent 20 minutes looking through that book and like just fiddling with it. So they do a lot of like fan service for people who really love like the nuances of like RPGs and old school gaming stuff, so level 5 still is catering to us, even though on the other hand they're taking their time to introduce new players to the genre. The voice acting, which I'm sure you're going to bring up.
Yep.
So I'll let you talk about it, but the voice acting's awesome. Really, 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 really good.
So you are you playing the game with the American voice acting?
Yeah, I'm playing the game with the English. Yep.
Okay, so for the first 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, I had it on the English voice acting, and then I switched over to the Japanese. Because while the English voice acting is really well done, Drippy is annoying as shit.
Oh, really?
Yes, I find him so annoying.
You hated Duck, too.
I did hate Duck. No, so I think it's at the beginning. He talks really fast and he blurs all his stuff together. And I understand, that can kind of be, someone's quirk. But then he also has he uses a lot of funny words.
Yeah, Welsh. He has a Welsh accent.
Yeah,
that's fucking hard to get your ears accustomed to.
Yeah, it's like a Snatch.
Yes, exactly. Lock, stock, two smoking barrels. You're You almost need the closed captions on just to get some of it.
So I switched to the Japanese voice acting, and I've actually been enjoying that a lot more because while there is a lot of voice acting, I think right now, from what I've played at least, it's like at least 80-20. 20 being voiced and 80 being you just read them. Because, they'll be having a cutscene and they'll be talking and then it'll jump into, oh, now it's text and you're reading it. Yeah. And so, I prefer the Japanese voice acting over the English in this case. I'm not saying the English is bad. It's definitely well done. It's definitely not bad at all. I just, in personal opinion, I prefer the Japanese voice acting.
Yeah. I kind of love you for that because I do that with a lot of I play a lot of JRPGs. And a lot of the times, like, I'm with you. If I pop a game in and in the first 2 hours, it's the same voice actors that do the voice translations, for majority of those games. I'm with you. If the option's there, I go with Japanese. But this was one of those cases where I kind of didn't, because I kind of enjoyed the English just as much. It's cool to hear that, though.
I would say try both. For anybody who, it's a really quick switch. I just want to switch the audio over to Japanese now. It's not like you have to do anything special. So I would say definitely try out both and see which one you like better. Yeah. It's also probably better to do it towards the beginning of the game because, like we've said, the beginning of the game has a good hour of cutscenes, sprinkled throughout gameplay. Yeah. And so that's a good time to test it out and see which one you like better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so things I like. You've already mentioned the graphics look amazing. I'm digging the spells. You get a lot of spells and you use them both in combat and outside of combat. Yeah. The spell book's cool too. You're learning new stuff. Items and weapons and stuff like that, they're similar to any JRPG. So I like that system. Combat, I've been having a lot of fun with. So how combat works is, like Pokemon, you would throw out your Pokemon and they would fight. And in this, you kind of do that with your familiar, but you don't have to. You can fight. You can fight yourself. Like you're in combat and you're like, oh well, my familiar has better physical attacks and I have better magical attacks, and this guy's more prone to physical, so I'm going to throw in one of my familiars. And as the game goes on, you'll have a second member of your party, and then I think eventually a third, and you don't control them. The weird thing is at any one point in time you're controlling one person. Yeah. But you can control anybody. So you can control the main guy, you control one of the other people in his team, or you control the main guy's familiar, or one of the persons in your team's familiars. Yeah. So you can do anything, and so it's a lot of. It takes a little while to get used to, just because everybody has different attacks. They all there's a little wheel on the bottom left that has you can attack, you can defend, you can do this, but it's going to be different for each individual character because they all have different abilities. Yeah. And so, for instance, when you catch a familiar, to do it, you have to use the second girl, the girl you get. I can't remember her name now.
I haven't heard her yet.
Yeah, I know you're about to meet her. But anyway, she has like a harp, and she can play a lucid tune, which will attract the familiar. And so whenever you have the ability to capture one, you have to switch over to her so she can do that. And so it's engaging combat. It's pretty fast paced as well. Yeah.
I have a question. Do the other people in your party members just stand back?
No. When you're fighting? So it depends. So when you have your familiar, they can only be in battle for so long. That's something we didn't mention yet. Yep. Is at the beginning, like the first ones you get, they can only be in battle for 30 seconds. So the battle you're in takes longer than 30 seconds, you either have to switch it out with another familiar, or like in the case of like Oliver would jump in, and you have to wait for that familiar to like kind of refresh. Like I said, they get tired, and you have to give them a break. And so when you're fighting with that other person, if their familiar's in battle, their familiar's fighting, and they kind of wander around like on the outskirts. They don't interact with the enemy though. Yeah. They're just kind of like hanging out, and then if their familiar has to come out, they'll jump in and stuff like that. And so it's similar, like Drippy's constantly running around the battle. Yeah.
And sometimes orbs.
Yeah, sometimes they'll throw orbs at you and stuff like that for health, and that's another thing I like is sometimes when you're fighting enemies, you get a special attack or something like that, or you hit them do a lot of damage. They'll drop health or mana orbs, which is a nice way to give you a little bit of pickup in battle, and it's easier.
It's when you get that nice, right?
So in general they'll do it, but yeah, whenever you get a nice, it always happens. And so if an enemy does a big attack and you defend, it says nice, and they'll drop some orbs.
Or if you hit them with a critical
attack,
backstab them or something like that, like they typically start bleeding orbs, blue and green, which fill your health and your mana and stuff like that. Yeah, which to me was like super cool, because that can like change the tide of a boss battle. Like,
definitely.
Let's just look down the line. Like, let's imagine 30 hours into the game, like you're talking probably 10-minute boss battles, which if you run out of stuff to eat and mana potions, you could still turn the tide of battle by coming through with some criticals and some smart strategic or tactical combat play, which is really, really cool. Like, that stuff's kind of great. It's more about movement. Like, even
and it definitely is about movement, because
I was gonna say, I found myself like right in the beginning of a fight, I find myself running off towards the edge with Oliver, right, and then swapping out to a familiar, tossing him in, and then if I needed to heal for whatever reason, when I switch back to Oliver, I'm way out back. So I have such a big gap that I could cast 2 heal spells before the enemies get to me, and then I could just throw my familiar in. Right back in. So stuff like that, where it's not really directed through the game or the combat system itself, more through its mechanics.
And speaking of, you were talking about taking out your familiars so you can heal. We didn't mention that before. Is that your familiars share your health and mana bar?
Yeah.
So when they're getting hurt, you're getting hurt. It's not, they don't each have their own. And so, like, say if like you're getting low on health, you can't just like throw out a familiar to help, because they have the exact same health as you. So yeah, and that's a good strategy you said, is to wherever you are when you throw out your familiar, that's where you will be when you take your familiar back out of battle.
Right.
And physical distance in between the enemy makes a difference. Like if I find an enemy running up on me and I'm low on health, you can just run away. I mean, they'll eventually, try and attack, and maybe they'll like have to stop while they're attacking, and you can physically dodge the attack and then heal while they're doing. And so yeah, the like you're saying, tactile it's a really good tactile combat system.
Yeah. Something I hope you bring up, Nolan, is the merit card system.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. And like any other JRPG, there's side quests, and lots of them. And in this game, instead of just giving you money and items and stuff for completing side quests and hunts, there's hunts in this game, like in Final Fantasy 12 and stuff like that. You'll get like stamps on a merit card, and as soon as you get 10, it's like any like kind of food place and stuff that do that, or like as soon as you get free 10 stamps, you get something back. And so far I think I have 5 stamp books filled up.
Oh, really? Holy shit.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of side quests. And so what you can do with those cards, once you have them filled up, is you can you trade those in for like abilities and stuff like that. Perks. And so I mean, you can see all the ones I can see. I haven't unlocked any new ones yet. And so like one of them is the ability to run faster when you're in the overworld.
Yeah.
One of them makes more health and mana orbs drop in battle. And the other one I got was
Jump. Did you get Jump?
I got Jump. Yeah, and that's the last one. I didn't get. I have 1 left over, and I'm saving that up because I need 2 to get the ability to. It makes it easier to sneak up on enemies.
Yeah. That stuff is just really, really cool.
Yeah. In regards to combat, there's this thing called tactics, and you can essentially, as soon as you get a new person on your party, since you're not controlling them but they're still fighting, you can kind of tell them. It gives you a short list of things you can tell them to do, like attack, or focus on keeping us healed and stuff like that. And I found that the AI is not the best. I definitely, I've told it, keep us healed, but the problem is every time my health drops You know, like my health, I think it's like 120 right now, and anytime it drops below like 100, it'll like throw out a heal, and I'm like, I don't need a heal right now. I need you to stop wasting your mana, and I need you to attack. And so that's kind of that can get a little bit frustrating, but there's not a whole lot you can do about that. You need your heals. Other dislikes.
Yeah.
One of my things is, like I mentioned it earlier, is there's a circle on the bottom left that has all your different abilities, and the problem is like a ring of different abilities, and you can scroll through them using left and right on the D-pad, or L2 and R2. You can shift through them. And so the problem I found with that is it's real time. So when you're shifting to select an attack, the monsters stop attacking you, and so. We mentioned, getting a defend in when you're fighting one of the bigger enemies. Well, it's beneficial because you take less damage and they drop mana and health, which usually negates the damage they did and gives you extra health. And so the problem is sometimes a monster will be gearing up for an attack, and I'll be oh crap, and I scroll over, and before I can activate that ability, like defend, he'll already have attacked, and it brings up a kind of like a little cutscene showing me getting hit and taking like 30 damage instead of like 4. And so I do like that it's real time.
Yeah.
The combat will stop when you scroll over and you select either like spells or provisions. So when you get deeper into something, it will actually stop and let you decide, I want to use a spell or I want to use this item. Yeah. But as far as selecting the different abilities, it doesn't, and that can get kind of frustrating, especially when, like you said, the battle's going poorly, and I could turn it around if I get a defend in and I can get some mana and health back, but then I'm not able to get that defensive ability up in time, and that can get kind of frustrating.
I learned pro tip for anyone who is going to play or is playing, learn to use the triggers, the L2 and the R2, to shift between your command menu.
I'm having trouble thinking of more things I dislike. I'm sure there's some, but
really outside of the need to get accustomed to so much in the game, like I needed to get accustomed to some of the voice acting accents. I needed to get accustomed to some things in the with the combat system. Outside of that, accountability thing, I really don't have that many complaints.
I mean, like I said, it's kind of hand-holdy. I'm sure that'll change eventually. It's like, let's, and it's kind of funny because not necessarily breaking the fourth wall, but later on you meet a character and he's kind of short-tempered, I guess, and he's like, and you can, when what's-her-face sings on her harp, she can capture familiars. And Oliver's like, so you mean when she plays on the harp, we can then keep that familiar? And he's like, yeah, I just said that. And I was like, yes, why are we repeating this? Let's go. And so, a lot of Japanese and JRPGs and even Japanese animes and stuff, there's a lot of repetition. When someone says something, they'll and they'll repeat the same thing back, which not necessarily frustrating, but I mean, I got it the first time you said it. And I'm pretty sure they designed this game, I don't want to say for kids, but I think they designed it in mind that kids can play it.
Yeah.
And so I honestly wish it was a little more adult than it is.
Yeah.
And then
all that charm, all the charming stuff with the game I enjoy. It is rated G, so I kind of came in with it and with the intent of it being a very Disney-esque type of adventure, but I can't help but feel like level 5 was trying to straddle the line between not going too dumbed down and still trying to hint or kind of cater back to people who really love JRPGs.
Well, one of my and it comes down to me nitpicking, but I can be a little annoyed by things. Is you get an ability to I don't want to spoil it. Say this person has a bunch of courage. Like, they have
Oh,
excess courage.
Yeah.
Well, you can borrow some of it from them. And so the problem is, it's this really repetitive process. If you have to have a conversation with them, and, Drippy's always like, oh, that seems like they have a little bit of courage. And courage is in bold, like, red letters. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. Thank you, Drippy. Let me use my spell now. And you use the spell, and it pops up in the thing. It's like, you got courage. And, like, this whole, like, elaborate thing. But it happens every time. So you've done it a couple times, right?
Yeah, I've done it like.
Yeah, it's going to happen every single time. And it just gets kind of frustrating where it's like, I wish it was a little more, like, I know I got that. I've done it 30 times now.
That's that JRPG long-windedness where they're always repeating the same shit.
Yeah. But I guess I'd rather end on a positive note. One of the things you were talking about, the overworld, which I think is really well done. And one of the things I like is when an enemy sees you, they run after you. Until you've been there a while and you're a high level, and enemies will see you and they'll start to run away.
Yeah.
And that's a really good indication of, I should probably move on now. Like, grinding in this area is probably going to do me no good because the enemies aren't going to be giving enough experience.
Yeah.
And I think that was really well done because I'm at that point, actually, because I'm in the desert now and I've been there for a couple of hours. And enemies have started to, like, when they see me, they run. I'm like, I should definitely not grind here anymore. I should move on to the next area, which will probably be difficult. But, it's good for me to, face the more difficult enemies so I level up faster.
But I think to close out, I will say that I fully intend on finishing this game.
Oh, definitely.
Even in just what I've played, I'm very invested in seeing where the game's going to go. My only concern is that the pacing and the narrative have to really keep the grip that they have on me right now. To satisfy me, because while I'm pretty accustomed to the slow pacing of JRPGs, like, man, it's the time of the year where, like, I really can't spend 50 hours playing something that towards the end of it I'm going to start petering off of my excitement for it and my desire to play it. So I just hope it holds on. But as of right now, it's fucking one hell of a JRPG, to be honest.
Oh, definitely. So I'm loving it so far.
Yeah, me too, completely.
So, like, as soon as we end this Audible Impressions, I'm literally going to start playing it.
Me too. Yeah. So I mean, there you have it. It's pretty much the kind of thing. I just want to warn people that if you aren't really into the charm and whimsy of, like, Disney stuff, or you can't swallow that kind of stuff right now, but you're in the mood for a JRPG, like, this might not be the game that you want to jump into. It's very, very whimsical and very it drives charm, and if if you want to be too cool,
that's not your thing.
Too cool for school, or if that's not your kind of thing, like, it's as cool as a lot of the stuff in this game is, like, it's very warm-hearted, and I'm assuming it's going to be that way for the rest of it. So just be warned with that, but know what to expect. I mean, it's a Studio Ghibli project. Yeah. So thumbs up. It's got my thumbs up.
Oh, definitely.
So you can find us on Twitter. I'm at QualityBeats84, and Nolan is
Infamous Nolan.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Nolan, for chit-chatting.
Yeah, I love talking about games that I love.
Yeah, and this is one of them. This is really good.
Definitely.
Okay, enough of this. Time for Ni No Kuni. Thanks, guys.
Bye.